Ethan says, I've recently discovered your podcast and love it. Listening, I feel like I'm in a cycling cafe with a group of seasoned pros who have invited me to sit at their table. Like, this is awesome. That's very cool. I'm definitely not the seasoned. Yeah. I was going to say, so it must be Nate and Jonathan over here. Yeah. Cool. He says, I'm 54 and have been riding for fun and friendly competition for years, usually picking a half dozen events to train for and doing my best at. Historically, my training has been fairly on point, and I can normally count on finishing in the top third in any event. Way to go. He says, in 2020, with all events being canceled, I went off my schedule and rode as often as I could for as many hours as I had time for, always solo. Unfortunately, I burned out horribly in May and exhausted with heavy legs and frequently lightheaded. I took all of June off. I even had my doctor run a battery of tests on me, but she found I was in fantastic health despite not feeling like it. After my break, I was back at full strength in July and August, but waned a bit. And he says again by October. Since then, I've accepted I seriously overtrained and keep taking recovery weeks. But it seems like a week off has me feeling invincible for a few days. Then I'm exhausted again. So my question for you, how does an aging warrior in his 50s bounce back from overtraining without a soul and fitness crushing winter off the bike? Forgive me for breaking up the cadence there. He says, and how might the same guy return to training hard next year without facing overtraining again? I have peers well older than me who are still going strong and are not ready to hang my bike up yet. So thank you. So his question is how to bounce back from overtraining, with the asterisk on that being as an aging athlete in his 50s rather than a young 20s something or something else, when you could do whatever you wanted seemingly and then wake up the next day and be at peak performance. So Pete, I kind of want to hand it to you on this one first. What would you want to tell him in this case, how to bounce back from overtraining?
I think one of the things we talked about a lot is if you're really trying to fill an exact amount of time in your life with only cycling, you will not be doing what you are supposed to be doing. And we've seen it happen. I've seen it happen countless times over the years where if you have 4 hours to spare every third day, you just fill it every minute of it with cycling. And that's your check mark. You're like, I filled my spare time with cycling. And what you'll do is you can really kind of grind yourself down without noticing it, because you're not holding yourself accountable day after day after day. And generally speaking, all of the workouts you're doing should be like a nice reminder of how you should be feeling. Like a workout should make you feel a specific way, and you should be focusing on how that feels. And then the next time and the next time and the next time. And you'll be able to tell really quickly if you're on a downward trajectory or maintaining or getting faster when you're just filling your time with riding, which is very easy to do. And I know many of us would choose to do that if we could. You can't kind of keep your fingers on the pulse the same way. And so you kind of have to remove the success of your cycling with filling the time, and more with you're trying to do specific things with your time in cycling and how to do those things. And I think that's the first thing we got to break apart. And once you're there, then you can start unwinding all the other things that are going on with the training and the overtraining and all that. But if you don't fix the first thing, the rest of what you do probably won't matter. That's how I'm thinking of this question. I know, Amber, you had some notes too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, yeah. Well, first of all, with overtraining, when you overdo it, it can take a really, really long time to recover from this. I got severely overtrained myself, and I felt a lot better over the course of months, but it really wasn't until a year or two later that I actually realized that I felt back to my normal self. So it's really, really good, first of all, that you're noticing this and that you're doing something about it. So huge kudos to you right off the bat. The other thing I just want to mention about the doctors telling you like, oh, you're perfectly healthy. Just because your, say, blood test results fall within reference ranges doesn't mean the most important thing is how you're feeling. If you know that you're feeling off, something is off. And if it's not showing up in your blood work, okay, but it doesn't mean that you're fine. If you don't feel fine, you're not fine, right? So trust your intuition, trust your body. And I would encourage you to try to work with your doctor a little bit to dig more deeply into the symptoms that you're feeling, even if they're not like really even if they're nebulous symptoms and they're really qualitative and it's really hard to pinpoint what's going on. I'll give an example. My family, we have familial thyroid problems. So I've been hypothyroid my whole life. It's just a familial thing. It's not a big deal. But it's something that I kind of have to titrate with my doctor and figure out how my supplement is gonna affect me. And one of the best doctors I ever worked with, she said exactly this: if you're not feeling right, just because you're within the right reference range doesn't mean that this is optimally working for you. So let's work on moving you within that range and see if we can get a better outcome in terms of how your symptoms are feeling. So trust yourself. You're doing a great thing by taking the time to actually address this now, and be patient with yourself. And then the other thing I would say is focus on some other kind of ancillary things around the training, because I know that it's hard to say just stop training because you're overtrained, because it's a mental and emotional outlet as much as it is physical. And that can be really helpful in the healing process too. So you don't necessarily want to rob yourself of that, but you definitely need to dial it back. Dialing back on the volume is going to be really helpful. Dialing back probably on the intensity as well, but you can also focus on some self-care type activities that will help your training, like mobility work. I think that that's a really good one. You can focus big time on that. It feels like you're taking care of yourself. And then when your body is healed and you're able to start taking on a higher load of training on the bike, you're going to be in a really, really good position to be able to handle that kind of work. And especially the older we get, the more we're going to gain from doing mobility work. So I think that that's just kind of like a no-brainer thing that you can get into that's not going to be detrimental, and it can help focus your mind and still be a little bit of an outlet.
Mm-hmm. Nate, you recently even went through a bout of this.
Yeah, Ethan, you are doing too much volume. Simple as that. You're trying to come back and like, what can I do to do too much volume again in the future? You have to do less volume. It might be for the rest of your life. It might be for 6 months. It might be for a year or two. Volume and intensity, I would reduce that. Here, I just want to give you some ideas of what to do, and then I'll tell you about my experience. One is more rest between hard workouts. You're saying like every I come to full strength, and then after a couple days, I feel exhausted again. Well, I would maybe if you do one intense workout, either the next day have completely off or do a light aerobic ride and then have a complete day off. So every third day have a complete day off. If that's not enough, have it every other day be a complete day off. And then if that's not enough, reduce the intensity of the rides to be aerobic in nature until you start feeling better again. Based on everything you heard in this podcast before, totally look at those recovery drinks and carb intake. The amount you will recover when your carb intake improves is insane. If you're also trying to, and just calorie restriction in general, every time where I have imploded, I try to I am getting so fast, and then I'm like, well, what if I just lower what if I lost 2 more pounds? I did it while John was talking. I'm 192 right now. If I was 188, I would be 4.2 watts per kilo, as fast as John, and I could drop John maybe someday if he has a bad day, and I've never done that on a climb in my life. And I just thought in my life, I was like, what if? And I was like, no, Nate, that is bad. Don't do that. Focus on the watts and the volume. You'll be faster in the long term. And so that's just one thing to think about. Sleep. How is work? All that sort of stuff. Make sure you're feeling it. So in my experience, when I had my little implosion, I would fail workouts that I knew I should have been able to do. And I would have this feeling during the day of my heart being light and fast. Like my resting heart rate was a lot higher, but also just felt like light. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but even while lying in bed, for me, I took a complete week off, and then I had 4 to 8 weeks of 50% reduced volume. I had more rest between hard workouts, and I made the super days super easy. Some of these are 45% of FTP. So basically, it doesn't even it feels like walking pretty much. And then after that, I had actually a bigger boost in fitness. And now I'm trying to, not as much volume as I used to do, but more than I had before. And then I'm going to take more often, actually, recovery weeks. I just was talking to John about this. I might be trying a 2-on, 1-off instead of a 3-on, 1-off ratio for myself, because in that third week, I'm pretty fried, and I don't need to be extra fried, right? I might be better doing less overall for the whole year based on I'm getting older too. I'm 38. So yeah, but in general, you're doing too much, Ethan. Like you're telling us you're doing too much. I come back and I overtrain. What do I do? It seems pretty obvious, right, from the outside, as most things do. Outside in, looking in, where it's hard to see it yourself.
What everybody's shared here has been awesome. Once again, doubling down on the carb discussion too that we had there, that can really help. The only thing that I would add to this at the end is to remember that you are not an athlete and you are not a cyclist because you trained today. That's a big thing that we have to break, because when we miss a workout, we tell ourselves all sorts of negative things. We have the temptation to be like, you're not even a cyclist. You didn't train today. Everybody else trained that you're going to race against. And there's all these negative thoughts that creep in with that. And you have to block that out. And you have to break this association that you have with, if I'm not training really hard, if I'm not training a ton, if I'm not returning completely exhausted, then I'm not a cyclist. You need to break that assumption. In this case, you doing the best thing for your health is actually also the path toward becoming the best cyclist you can be, which is actually the case for all of us. So, and in whichever circumstance we're in. So in this case, Ethan, focus, like I really like what Amber said, focus on mobility work. Maybe some strength work. Focus on maybe it's when you're on the bike, you just work on skills. I don't know, like you work on something different that finds more fun into the sport of cycling as well. Mountain biking, cyclocross, gravel, something different. I don't know, but don't associate time off with you not being an athlete. Time off is a part of the athletic process. So as you learn to manage that and include that into your forward moving progress, you're going to be in a much better headspace, but then you'll also be healthier as well. So hopefully that was helpful for Ethan and everybody else that may be coming up against something like that. Fuel with carbs, whether it's during or after or before. Make sure you're kind to yourself with overtraining. And then if you're a beginner racer, make sure that you don't ward out stage races. Those are the main takeaways. And of course, tan balls.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.